So one of the key things when sniping is knowing when it's the right play to pull out the sniper. And there is a common misconception that sniping means camping at the back of a large map trying to pick people off from distance, whereas the way the good players like to snipe is whenever there is a sniping choke point, largely regardless of distance between yourself and the opposition player. Okay, so the reason being that this creates a good chance of getting a headshot, and thus a one-shot kill, which will generally beat any other weapons hands down. So what is a sniping choke point? It's a small area whereby you can predict the head height of any opposing player when they walk through that small area. So common examples of ready-made choke points are doorways and tight corridors. But you can also create artificial choke points yourself using other buildings, columns, rocks, etc. So the aim when sniping is to pull out the sniper when you can create a sniping choke point and thus are confident of getting a headshot against an oncoming opposition player. So if I look through some gameplay examples of this in action, first up is Rusted Lands, and you can see that we already have a ready-made choke point with a doorway there, which is looking straight onto the zone on control. And so you can see those are very easy kills for me there, because I know exactly the head height that people are going to be through that choke point. So I'm just moving just from my right or left analog stick. Okay, that's all I've got, the adjustment I've got to make. And obviously the common way to snipe is to sweep that cursor onto the head to get the headshot. And 6v6 game modes like Control and Clash are actually much easier to snipe because you have the element of surprise a lot more than you do, say, for example, in Skirmish, where people aren't necessarily looking at you the whole time and they're not necessarily appreciating that you're sniping them as well. So there's certainly a lot easier plays to be had on the likes of Control and Clash than there is on Skirmish. Next up is Shores of Time, and you can see where I position myself there. There's actually two sniping choke points. There's directly ahead of me, down towards Zone A, and then just through the gap to the right. There's two small areas where people coming towards me, I can roughly know where their head height is, and there's not much left and right adjustment needed on the aim. And in this scenario, you can see there's actually someone pulled a golden gun, and he doesn't know I'm there, and he doesn't know I'm sniping, so I have the element of surprise. If he knows I'm there, and he knows I'm sniping, he's likely to kill me, because I missed with my first shot, but that's the advantage of playing the likes of Control or Clash. Next up is Rusted Lands again. You can see I'm looking through essentially a doorway, and then I spot someone on the radar up to the right. Now I know exactly where that person is. They are up near the zone, on top of that in that building, and there's just a small doorway, or what was a doorway or window, just at the edge of that building. So I know exactly where I need to aim as soon as I jump up. And clearly, my execution there is pretty fast. I haven't taken any time to position myself and ready my aim and wait for someone to come around a corner into that kind of choke point. The person's already there, but I'm confident in my ability, and this comes through practice, of actually jumping up and getting the shot off before he can kill me with probably what he's got is a thorn there. Whereas, if you're more beginner in terms of sniping, what you should do is not do things like that, because you're not like to make that shot. You want to position yourself where people will actually run through or walk through that choke point. So, before they can see you, you've actually killed them, okay, which isn't a scenario like that. Again on Rusted Lands. Now, this is more of an artificial choke point because that doorway there is very wide, okay? It's far too wide to cover that whole area. But I'm using my knowledge of, I know someone's on that zone. I can see someone on the radar. They're clearly capturing B there. Now, I know where the zone is, and I know it's to the left of that doorway. Okay, it's the left half of that doorway, not the right half. So I know the height, the player height. So I'm using that knowledge that it's on the left half. Okay, so I haven't got to cover that whole doorway, and so I edge round, and you can see, again, I'm covering only a small area, so the left and right aim adjustment is very small. Next up is Pantheon, and actually this is a skirmish game, and we're actually in a 2v3. One of our players left or got kicked out, and you can see you've got 3 snipes during this whole game. And again, Pantheon's really good for creating. There's a lot of actual sniping choke points, but you can create a lot of artificial ones because there's a lot of columns, blocks, and building kind of materials around. So you can see all of these. They aren't really necessarily natural choke points, but I'm creating them by creating a narrow space between 2 separate columns. And you can see all 3 snipes are area or ways I've created small areas where the left and right adjustment is actually very, very small, and I know the head height. So particularly that second snipe, that's very close range, but I can make that snapshot because I know my adjustment I need to make as soon as he comes around that corner is very small, so therefore I don't need much time to make that adjustment, and I can get that before he can fire a shot at me. Next up is this is blind watch, and I'm actually coming up against another sniper, and again this is short range, and we have a ready-made choke point in the doorway. But once again, I'm using my knowledge that wherever people like to come through that doorway, it's going to be the left half. They're not going to run. Well, a good player would, but the average player is not going to slide or move or walk through to the from my perspective, the right side of that doorway. It's going to be the left half of that doorway, just like it was on the Rusted Lands one. They're going to be through the left side, so I have an advantage in terms of I know pretty much exactly where they're going to be. So I get the first snipe, then he goes for the revive, so it's obviously very easy because I'm going against no one essentially, and then the other guy that did revive comes to challenge me, and again, I'm in position, he's not. I know exactly where he's going to be. It's a very small adjustment, so it's a much easier snipe for me to make than it is for him. Back to Rusted Lands, and these are very, very easy snipes. I get 3 snipes in a row. It shows the example of something like Clash or Control. This is Clash, and so not everyone is looking to engage you or looking at you at the same time, because there's someone in front of me, so they're looking to engage him. They're not concerned about me. I'm too far away for them to even realise that I'm sniping. So the first 2 are very easy, and the third guy's got the golden gun, but you can see he's actually quite scared of coming through there. He knows I'm sniping, and he's like, shit. He backs off, then he thinks, right, I'm going to engage, but I know exactly where he's going to come through. I know where he backed off to, so I know he's going to come, from my perspective, through that right side of that doorway. So I've only got to cover a very small column there. So again, that's a pretty easy snipe for me, despite the fact that he's got a golden gun. Next up is Asylum. Yeah, I think it's Asylum, and I think everyone pretty much knows this sniping choke point. It's a ready-made one, and you can narrow it yourself, as you can see by going through. You're looking through that doorway at an angle, because you know exactly when they're going to come up those stairs. And I missed with a couple of shots there as well, but people just keep coming up, and they're not engaging me with a sniper, so they've got to get at least. Most people are using Thorn in this particular moment in time, so they've got to get 2 headshots or 3 body shots on me. And I've got to get 1 headshot, and the headshot for me through that what is a very narrow area is very easy. So even if I miss, and my execution isn't particularly great, I'm certainly not the greatest sniper in the world. Getting those few kills there is not particularly difficult. And this one's slightly different. It's a little bit amusing. He pulls the self-res, and there is a sniping choke point there. You can see it's a ready-made one, but he pulls the self-res right in front of me. And I know, it's 1 headshot to kill him still, or 2 body shots with my high impact sniper. What I don't want to happen is to get caught by him meleeing me or hitting with 2 grenades, because obviously that's going to kill me. And that's why I blink back first to get out of melee range. I get caught by a nade, but by that time I've got 1 body shot, and then I blink back again because I'm definitely out of melee range now, and then it's just a body shot for me, whether he's resorted to using his primary, but he hasn't got time to kill me. So you can see, just using your sniper in different scenarios there, that was an easier kill, 2 body shots by blinking back again, than it was putting out my primary by the time I've done that, and getting multiple shots needed to kill, the shield on a self-res Warlock. Final clip on Shores of Time. The opposition team, this is Skirmish, have picked up heavy, and I don't have heavy. So this goes back to what I was saying in one of my previous vids, in the beginner's tips in terms of engage or not to engage when looking at weapon imbalances and how to counter someone that has heavy when you don't. And so creating a sniping choke point is clearly the most obvious way. And you can see here, this is a massively wide doorway, but I know where their heavy is. It's obviously round there to the left. So when they're coming towards me, they know where I am, so they're going to come around that corner. So they're coming around to the left from my perspective. They're not going to just jump all the way to the right. They're going to walk round to the left. So I've got to cover a very narrow column again. And obviously I know the head height. So again, it's a very easy, even though, obviously I've got to make that snipe quickly and under pressure because they've got rockets. And I still might, they still might get a rocket off, but at worst I'm going to exchange, which isn't a bad outcome considering they have rocket launchers and I don't. So, it's actually not difficult to get that. You just have to make sure you're confident in your ability to execute that snipe, but you know exactly where they're going to come up. The small slither of column you've got to cover, and the head height. So it's just trusting your instincts of when they do come around there to pull the trigger. So to summarise, the takeaway is that sniping isn't about camping. It's not about just using on large maps. You can use it at relatively short distances as well. Always think about how can I create a sniping choke point, and is using that sniper to snipe through that choke point a much more efficient way of getting a kill than using my primary weapon or my my nades, etc. Okay, and the way to practice this is to go onto a map, especially on Control and Clash. You get more kills on those sort of game modes because obviously there's more enemies, and just try and snipe as much as possible. That's what I do. My next video will be a whole game of Shores of Time where I just didn't do anything apart from snipe with my, not using No Land Beyond, just using my secondary. So there were times where I didn't have any ammo, so I had to run around and just stay alive. But I spent the whole game just getting sniper kills, and it's all about getting the mindset of how can I create a sniping choke point between me and my opposition player that's on the radar. You know, maneuvering yourself into creating an artificial sniping choke point. Okay, and the more you do that, the more you'll find sniping becomes second nature.